What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Beyond the Message podcast. This week's Pastor Mike here. Unfortunately, I apologize for that. But I am joined with Dr. Keith.
Hello.
And Tracy.
Hi.
And this week, we're unpacking, of course, last week's message. Dr. Keith, you brought the message, the potter, that Fowler's clay works, the analogy of the potter and the clay. Really powerful imagery last week coming off of something that we see appear throughout Scripture. We see that imagery show up time and time again. But I think there was definitely some things on the message this week that maybe go beyond what we typically think of when we think of the idea of God as a potter, us as clay, all those kinds of things. So only appropriate, start with you. So going into this, kind of starting ground level with this idea, what were kind of your main thoughts going into the message that you really, maybe initially really wanted to bring out in the service this past week?
When Pastor Brent presented the summer series and what the topics were, he just said the potter and the clay. And first he had given me the forge by fire and making a knife, and I was excited. I was like, yes, I'd already sort of started thinking stuff through. And then he changed it. And I said, wait. You gave me that one. He said, no, I'm taking that one. I'm doing that on Father's Day. And I said, no, you gave me that. And then he told me, he said, you're going to do the potter and the clay. And I was like, man, I had this about the knives and iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another. But then I remembered way back, probably 5 or 6 years. I said, I'll do potter and clay. But I thought back to 5 or 6 years ago, I saw a picture of a piece of Japanese pottery that was broken, and then they fix it back with gold glue.
Yeah.
And it's called kintsugai or something.
Yeah.
And I never knew how to say it. But for the last 5 years, anytime I would see one of those types of pottery, I was always enamored by it. And that day I said, if I ever get to teach about the potter and the clay, I'm going to use that as part of the brokenness and then built back more beautiful. And so that had been in the back of my head forever. Didn't know if I'd get to do it. There's a lady that used to attend our church. She is deceased now. And she had some amazing pottery. She had pottery. In fact, I saw a piece of pottery that she had, and I said, I just said, how much does that piece of pottery cost? And she said, well, I bought that one and that one at an auction together with that grandfather clock and paid a little over $1 million for. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then so later I asked her, she had lots of pottery pots in her house. I said, do any of them ever get broken? Do you ever, and she said, yes. And a couple of times I've broken them. And I said, what do you do with them? And she said, you hate it, but you just throw them away. And I said, if that ever happens again, knowing this thought was in my head years ago, I said, could you let me know? And I said, I would like it because there's a sermon I want to do that I need a broken pot that I can try to do some stuff on, fix it back. And she said, that's intriguing, yeah. Well, like 3 days later, this lady sent me a text and said, hey, I've been thinking about what you said. I'm considering breaking one of my pots. And I said, no, don't break one of your pots. If you want to give me one of the pots, I would consider that. But so anyway, I've thought about it for years, this thought of that Japanese technique that takes a broken piece of pottery, mends it back with gold glue, gold epoxy, and it's more beautiful than before. So that's where the whole thought of that happening. And, of course, we didn't use gold. We used clear so the light could shine
I was
through.
going to say, I was really disappointed that you didn't go for broke and, pay for the extra gold glue.
Do the gold.
Yeah, I mean, come on, Keith, step up.
I think it was really funny, the amount of people that thought you accidentally dropped your pot.
Wednesday night especially.
Wednesday
All
was
of them,
awesome.
but Wednesday was like, they were so into it.
Well, when you did it during staff meeting that day,
Yes.
I totally
Yes.
fell for it. I was like, he just dropped that.
Yeah.
I was
Oops.
Like, oh, wait, he's just...
Yeah. So, guys, those people listening in right now, we have a staff meeting almost every Tuesday, and there's about 22 of us, 23 of us, and as soon as staff meeting was over, I ran out and got one of the jars, acted like it was mine, brought it in, and everybody's about half the people had already left the room, but the other half were there in the sanctuary. And so those 11 that were still there, one of them recognized I was carrying this cool piece of pottery, and they said, "Did you make that?" And I said, "Yeah." One of them said, "You didn't make that. You didn't." We talked about it a second, and everybody went back to their own little talks. And so I just walked up on stage. I was going to make sure that when I dropped it, it would break, that it wasn't just going to bounce and something. And so I walked right up there, and in fact, I had Scott, y'all might not know this, I said, "Scott, video me." And he said, "What?" And I said, "Just video me." So I got it on video too to see what it looked like. I went up there and dropped it, and y'all were all talking, and when it hit the stage, all conversations stopped. All of y'all turned your head straight like, "What just happened?" And I thought, oh, this is going to be good. If it got them, the people will sure be drawn in by that. So
it definitely woke up all the people that were sleeping.
I hope they weren't sleeping, but yes, it got their attention.
I'm just teasing.
No, it got their attention.
No, that's good because, and knowing you were going to do that, obviously, even going into that first service Wednesday night, I'm waiting because I know roughly in the message where this is coming. And as you're sitting there kind of twirling the pot around, and a couple times before that, and so even online for any of our online campus that was listening, I had to laugh because on the weekend, as you would set it on the table and it would wobble a little bit, comments are blowing up on the different platforms going, "Please move it away from the edge." So that was funny. But I like that because, you really kind of brought about, by doing that, you really kind of brought about almost two different ideas in the message that obviously worked hand in hand. Just the idea of, what we think of when it comes to a potter, hey, we're making a finished product here. It's complete. It looks a certain way, whatever. And then you went into that broken pot. And I think, kind of having both of those, kind of presented in the course of one message, I think there was a lot of power in that because it did
all of us.
Right. And it took a turn that I think that maybe people weren't expecting, of course, especially not for you to break it like that, but definitely one that everybody could relate to at some point, for sure.
Yeah, because, a lot of people think once they're broken or once they've done something wrong in life, they're not of use anymore. But if you allow God to put the pieces back together and put it together with his glue, that's way more valuable than gold. Yes. And you are still usable. And sometimes you come out even better and more valuable on the other side of being broken.
Almost always we're better after the real brokenness. Because before that, we really do lean on ourselves. And I'm pretty knowledgeable. I can do this. God, if you'll let me, I'm going to do this. And I can figure this out. And once you're really broken, you realize I can't do anything. And that goes against the thoughts of the world out there right now, the do-it-yourself, get this done, you can do this. It goes all against that. He is God and I'm not. And if I want to be his kid, I just need to be obedient and listen, humble myself and say, God, you just guide. Now we still have to do things, but we're listening to him and trying to die to ourselves every day. And that wasn't me for years and years of being a Christian. But now I literally want to, that John 3:30, John the Baptist said, pointing at Jesus, he must increase, I must decrease. And, that's what we have to be. Break me, Lord, because then you can use me. And nobody wants to be broken. I didn't want to be broken, but it sure happens.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask is, from y'all's perspective, because nobody wants to pray that prayer, at least not until you've really been through some things and you go, okay, I'm willing. But at face value, nobody prays, God, please break me in half, And so with that, from y'all's perspective, for individuals listening to this, that whether it's something they've already been through the worst of it, and they're trying to kind of put the pieces back together, trying to find their way out, or maybe they're right stuck in the middle of kind of this pressure process where they feel like everything is weighing down on them and they can't picture things getting better. We've all been there at different seasons of life for different reasons. What would you guys say to the average person? Because it's like Pastor Brent has said numerous times, you're either fixing to go through a storm, you're going through a storm, or you're just coming out of it. So we can all relate at some point. We're just at different parts of this equation.
One of the things that kind of stuck with me was when you were talking about the turntable and putting that clay down that soft moldable clay down in the center of that turntable, and how your wife did it so well, which of course she would.
Yeah,
She's
she was
good
better at
stuff
this.
like that.
Yeah, she was
And
very
you put yours on, and it wasn't centered, so it was kind of like off balance. It was wobbly, and how you were trying to move it over on your own to the center, and how the master potter had to put his hands around yours to kind of guide that. And I thought, what a cool analogy, like just for life. Like sometimes when we're not centered, life can feel kind of off balance and wobbly, and you kind of feel out of control, and it's not working the way that it's supposed to. And yet, if you allow God, or even realize that God's hands are still wrapped around you to center you, to bring you back to that center and kind of even things out, there's some relief there. Like, I don't have to get my life in order. I don't have to get my life balanced. I just need to realize that God's hands are still around me if I allow him to keep me where he wants me to be and creates me into what he wants me to be. And that can kind of re-steady. Life is like that turntable. It's not always going to be steady and even and rotate the way it's supposed to, but come back to that center point of God still got me. I don't have to go through all of this on my own, because God still got me if I realize his arms and hands are wrapped around me.
I think a lot of our listening audience, a lot of our people, a lot of us can go through times where we think, does he really love me? Does he care? Is he really my help? And until we can figure those out in our brains and say, he does love me, no matter what I'm going through, no matter what I've caused on my own or not, if I will turn to him, he is my help. He's there for me. And if we realize that, then we can calmly say, you are going to help me because I've been an idiot. You're going to help me through this. But there's a lot of people out there that think God hates them, that thinks God is not for them. If you knew what I'd done, he is not for me. He will never be for me. And that's a lie, but people listen to that. We've listened to that, I'm sure, before. I hope that our listening audience can realize that if they're hearing this, they're loved by God. Doesn't matter what you've done. If you are humbly repenting, he loves you. He wants to hear that, and he will help you. It may be slow. It may be, but he loves us, and he'll help us. He does have those hands that'll go around you and calm you and say, I got you.
Yep.
And that's a learning process on our end to say, I'm going to let you just let the potter do the making and us rest in him.
And I think sometimes in life when we go through things, we do feel abandoned.
Yes.
Like, I'm going through this because he's not there. Well, that's not true. And you talked about that in 2 Corinthians 4, verse 8 and 9. We're hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed, which my mind automatically goes to that like 90s worship song.
Yeah. Was it, yes, Lord?
Yes, Lord, let's go. But it says in there, we are going to go through hard times. Life is going to be difficult. We are going to have persecution in our lives, but we are not abandoned. And it goes back to what you said about, Jesus on the cross. Like, he went through something absolutely horrible, knew it was coming, was still willing to be broken and crushed, and yet he knew. And he even questioned, God, did you forsake me? But he was not abandoned. And so it was just a cool reminder for me during that message.
I think that's something that you said in the message every service. You said, if you were smart, you would have just let Mike just make a clay pot and be done and all that. But you followed it up by saying you wanted the experience of doing it yourself. And we talked to Mike Fowler about this as well, that he's like, because you go in their shop, they've got all kinds
already ready for
all
you.
Kinds of things that are done. Right. They're glazed. They're ready to go. You can buy it off the shelf and go. And he even said it. He said, people get so fired up and get more excited about what they get to make and the process and all that. And I think that on one hand, even though we don't like the process many times when it comes to our individual lives, we don't like having to be refined and reshaped and the heat and the pressure and all the things that, we deal with. But yet, when you can step back in hindsight and look at what you've been through, look at that process and go, look at how far God brought me. That's when you see the goodness of God, and that's when you grow in your faith, in your relationship, because you see that it's not in a vacuum. It's not sunshine and roses all the time. And yet, despite the fact that, yes, you've been through some things, you've been through challenges, you've been through loss, whatever it is, that God stuck by you every single step of the way, many times despite ourselves.
Yes.
I mean, like, we laughed about it because how long did it take you to make that clay pot? Probably the better part of maybe an hour or something like that,
Yeah.
And yet, Mike, literally, I asked him, I said, how long does it take you to make one of these? And he goes, I'll show you. He took a piece of clay, threw it down on a turntable, and started. In about 30 seconds, he was done. Wow. And so
much bigger pot than ours.
Yeah.
With
Little
angles and bends
embellishments
to it and all. Yes, all the little thing, and just boom, popped it out.
But that's
a
just
master potter.
But I think that right there is really something that should stick with us. Is sure, God could, if he wanted to, he could turn us into mindless robots, and we could instantly start from the beginning perfect and with the talents and abilities and the mindset and all that. But there's no freedom in that. There's no love in that. But because God loved us, he puts his hands around us and says, let's do this together. And I think that there's beauty in that. And I looked it up, Keith, because we have to get this right at some point in this podcast. So I'm probably not going to say it right, but kintsugi is, but it's gold joinery. And so if you guys want to look this up online, KINTSUGI, beautiful imagery will pop up of these pots. But there again, I think that's what we need to understand is the world's idea of what beauty is the perfectly shaped pot that has no cracks, no embellishments, and that's social media. That's the front that we put, the mask that we all put on a daily basis. But yet, really, God's idea of beauty is going, hey, I'm going to take your imperfections. I'm going to take your mistakes, the sin in your life, the trials, the temptation, all the things that you're going to go through, all the stupid mistakes that you're going to make and the things that are going to happen to you. I'm going to take that and I'm going to make something far more beautiful and far more valuable with it than what the world ever had in mind. And so don't look at your brokenness. Don't look at those cracks and problems as being things to be ashamed of. Look at that as going, hey, this is part of my story. This is part of who God made me to be, and I can use this to have such an impact on other people. So, anything else?
Good.
I just want to, one of the things that I wrote down for myself is, are you moldable?
Yeah.
Are you allowing yourself to be moldable, to be soft, to be taught, to be corrected, to be transformed? I love the fact, like it says, like the clay doesn't get to decide what it's going to be that day.
Yeah.
It's the person who has its hands around that clay that get to decide what it's going to look like and what it's going to be used for. And I want to be used. And I want to change. And I think sometimes we let pride get in the way of that.
I was going to say,
he
sometimes.
just raised his hand, by the way, because I know you can't see him.
It's not video.
Like, I just would pray that my heart is soft enough and moldable enough to be used for what God created me to be used for. I don't want to be a cup if I'm supposed to be a vase.
That word that Pastor Brent used when he taught us how to pray, and P-R-A-Y, and the Y being yield, that one affected me so much because I realized as a Christian, most of my life, I did not yield my life to God. I yielded salvation, but I wanted to be a chiropractor. I wanted to be in control. I wasn't trying to go sin. I wanted to live right, but I also wanted to do what I wanted to do. And when I ultimately yielded, then I said, Lord, I'll do whatever you're calling me to do. And I knew what he was calling me to do. I didn't know how he was going to do it, but I had to yield, and it was so hard for me. And now I don't want it any other way. I fight acting like Keith now. I want to just stay yielded, but because of our flesh, we're a constant battle there. But once we yield, we just realize how good God is, how amazing. And he does wrap his arms around us and comfort us and guide us. And if we let him, staying submissive, staying humble, staying meek, and that's a battle because we're flesh.
Yeah.
Flesh.
Well, you guys have both basically said it, and that's, over the years I had heard many mentors and stuff in various churches say, oh, everyone should pray for this and everyone should pray for that, for, all these specifics for their life. And I think you guys said it, you said it the most simplest way possible. And that's exactly where we need to be. And that is, God, use me. Instead of putting limitations and restrictions on what we think and how we think God can use us, to say, God, use me today. Make a difference in somebody's life. Exactly. So
I'm available.
Well, guys, listen, thanks for hanging out with us once again this week. Pastor Brent is here in the building this week bringing the message. So be part of this service this week ahead as we celebrate America 250 Wednesday night and Sunday. No service Saturday night. If you come Saturday night, maybe you could start the coffee for Sunday morning, but Wednesday and Sunday morning only. So be here, be part of the services this week. It's going to be great as we celebrate America 250, but more importantly, we celebrate our freedom in Christ. We celebrate it through baptism. It's going to be a great week once again ahead. So we love you guys. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you in church.
Thank you, Pastor Matt.